Hello, welcome back to Oliver's Greenhouse. So as you know, I hope you all enjoyed my Bulbophyllum delivery unboxing video. As you can imagine, I've got lots of things to do in the greenhouse and not a lot of time to do them. So I've managed to steal a little bit of time this evening. It's Thursday evening, it's about 9 o'clock, so I've got a little bit of time. What I wasn't going to do was basically make a video of you watching me pot up all of those Bulbophyllums. We're going to do a couple together, but it's just potting up plants. It's really, I personally don't think it's that interesting. But I have come up with a new way of mounting Bulbophyllums, and as you probably know, I don't like to water too much. I want to avoid watering too much. There are some people that obviously have the time in the day to go in and water their orchids. Every day, maybe sometimes even twice a day. I don't have that luxury. My life is very, very busy, so therefore I need a way of cultivating orchids which allows me that buffer. So I've got that bit of time between waterings where actually, so if I do go away for a weekend, or if it's particularly hot weather, I've actually got, the plants have got a reservoir, or at least a water retentive mix that's going to keep them sustained whilst I'm away before I can get back to them. So if you notice with a lot of the way I mount my orchids, and even these, especially these saucer pots, which I put most of my Bulbophyllums in, when you put a few drainage holes in the bottom of them, I rely heavily on sphagnum moss as well, because obviously it holds like 3 times its own weight in water. So it's the volume of moisture it will retain in a potting media is excellent. So I rely on it really heavily. I know some growers don't get on with it. If you flush, I find that if you flush your pots regularly, which I do, but basically my watering technique is not very technical. I basically get all the orchids down, put them onto the gravel, so we've got that nice free draining granular fill on the greenhouse floor, and I fill up a watering can just out of the water butt, and I just baste the whole lot. Everything just gets completely soaked, and it stays on the ground there for about an hour whilst the fans blow over it, or over the plant. So if there is any moisture in the crowns, it tends to just be blown out by the fans, and by the time I pick them up, the leaves are predominantly dry anyway, so then they go back on the benches. So I do that once a week, and then they get fed once a week. So I'm watering twice a week at the moment, which is great because obviously my greenhouse, I have the luxury of having a humidity controlled greenhouse, so it never dips below 70% humidity even in the hottest days of summer, and it's about 94% humidity in at the moment, so it's just basically a rainforest. And I think it was 15 degrees centigrade when I checked, but it's quite mild here in the UK at the moment. We've got some very unsettled stormy weather, but it's very mild. So I mean, outside, as opposed to last week when it was like -5 for like a fortnight, it's about 8 or 9 degrees out there this evening, so it's very warm, but very unsettled. We've got a few storms coming. But on the flip side, that's really good because it means I'm spending a lot less money on electricity heating the greenhouse. So that's really, really good. So what I've come up with, or devised, never grown like it, haven't made one yet, so this is going to be the first time, so you guys are going to come along on it. I've come up with using one of these to mount an orchid, and I think it's going to be quite interesting. And I've thought about it, at some length, and I think it's going to be really, really good way of growing Bulbophyllums, because we know this genus really likes high humidity. It likes to be damp, evenly moist throughout the whole year. So with that in mind, I've come up with a way of using these to mount orchids. It's going to be a bit of an adventure because I've not done it before, but I've planned it in my mind. So what I'll do is I'll pick you guys up, I'll come down here and we'll have a chat about the things you're going to need to do this. All right? Okay, so sorry about the beginning of the video. It may seem really yellow and slightly peculiar. I'm still learning the ropes with this camera at the moment, and I actually had it set on bright sunlight setting, which means it looks like I've been standing a bit too close to a nuclear reactor for too long at the beginning of the video. So I apologise for that, but the rest of the video should look okay anyway. So before we go any further, this video is dedicated to a supporter of mine called Kix Grow. He's my single only Patreon subscriber who's been supporting me a little bit since I was, for quite a few months now, and he's a very kind and modest guy, and we've been corresponding over the last couple of days about my Patreon channel. So a big shout out to you. Thank you ever so much for you know, just being prepared to you know, help support this project. So this one's for you, buddy. Thanks very much. Okay, so back to the things you're going to need to do this. Okay, so I'm going to be using a glue gun. A very important, watch your fingers. I literally burn myself on this every time I use it. We're going to be using some gutter guard. Okay, you know I use this stuff quite a lot anyway. It's really, really handy for making my little mounts, courtesy of Brad's Greenhouse. Thanks for the inspiration and tutorial. We've got some sail making needles. These are just some standard sail makers needles, very, very handy. I use them a lot. I used to do a lot of rope splicing, so very handy with that. What else have we got in here? We're going to be mounting, in this instance, Bulbophyllum laciochilum. Yep, Bulbophyllum laciochilum. You're going to need a pair of mole grips. That will also become apparent in due course. We've got some fishing line. This is 12-pound fishing line, so it's super fine. You're hardly going to notice it when the orchid's all tied up with it. So you're going to need some of that. You're going to need a picture hanging clip. These little brass ones. We're going to use that to basically glue to the back of the saucer to as a point of affixing it to the mounted orchid wall. This simplest thing, isn't it? The tree tag. I always forget to put a tree tag, so it's the force of habit, to put a plant tag on the plant that I'm working with, and I have a number of plants in the greenhouse which I just have no idea what they are. So we're going to need one of them. And then the last thing, least but last not, is one of these saucers. Now for potting media, we're going to be using, as I slightly discussed in the bright yellow beginning of this video, we're going to be using a lot of sphagnum moss, some fine grade orchid bark, and I'm also going to be using some grow stone, which is that exploded glass, recycled glass basically, just to keep some air in the mix. All right, so what I'll do is I'll get you into a favourable position and get some newspapers set out, and we'll start sticking this guy together. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to roll some of this out. Now this has to be long enough, okay, so it's important that we've got enough to go around to the halfway point of the saucer. So there's a little bead, of moulding in the middle there, which is going to define where the centre of our saucer is. So we need to make sure we've got enough of an overlap of this material, because what we're going to do is we're going to stick it to the back of the saucer. So we'll just let that flop off down there for the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut left-handed. Oh, it's so awkward. Why is it with human beings and not being able to cut with a pair of scissors with a left hand? How is it any different to cutting with a right? Comments down below, please, people. Right. So what we want quite a tight fitting overlap of this material on the back of our saucer. Okay, and what we're going to do is we are simply this is just to hold it for the meantime, this is, so that's all it's got to do. We're just going to put a bead using a hot glue gun of glue. This stuff is amazing. If you're sticking glue, if you're gluing plastics, this stuff is amazing. It will stick like you wouldn't imagine. Now, because we need to get it to hold and to set. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is just going to blow over the glue like this, because what it's going to do is just going to let it go off a bit quicker, otherwise we're going to be sat here for ages holding on to a gluing plastic saucer. So for the sake of 5 minutes, of blowing, it means it's going to hold it in place that much quicker. It's just going to go off a lot quicker. So it's not particularly exciting, this bit, but it does make life a lot easier. And I have actually trialled this a little bit to work out the physics behind it, to see how doable it actually is. And this is the easiest way that I could come up with it in my head. As you'll see in a bit, we'll be attempting to glue. Notice I use the word attempting. We'll be gluing the sides of this netting down onto the saucer. Not quite gone off yet, almost. We'll be gluing the sides of this netting down onto the saucer to hold the netting in place. So this is really just to make our lives easier in a minute when we come to do the rest of it. Okay, I can pretty much let go of that now. And we'll just leave that for another 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and that should be fully gone off. I'll just hold it up to the camera so you can actually see what it is we've done. So hopefully that will focus on there. So I've just overlapped the netting this way, and I've just glued a seam down the middle of it, and all that's going to do is hold this netting material onto our saucer. Okay, we'll leave that 5 minutes, and I'll go have a shower, and when I come back we'll be able to do the rest of it. Okay, so shower finished, feeling a lot more human, ready to finish this off. The glue's gone off. Also my phone's run out of battery, so I'll have to keep manually checking to make sure you can see what it is that I'm doing. I think everything's going to be okay. Let me just tie my hair up out of the way. Otherwise, the last thing I want is ending up with this contraption permanently attached to my ever-receding hairline in some way. Right, okay. So that's gone off now, and it really does stick. So you can kind of see what we're going for here. What we're going to do next is we are going to cut here and here, okay? And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to fold this material down over the edge of the saucer and glue it in place. Okay, so just want to cut down to about the halfway mark. Like that. And the same like that. And to make life easier, we can actually cut a triangle of that material out of the way. And the same on this side. Hopefully you guys can see that. I can't tell anymore, but hopefully you can see that. And what that's going to allow us to do is just to turn these corners in like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to glue it here against the side of the saucer. Okay, and we're going to do the same down the bottom. Just going to trim off a small section of that as well there. Okay, so hopefully Mr. Glue Gun's going to be nice and hot. So it's very much a do it in stages kind of build, because we are constricted time-wise by the amount of time it takes for the glue to go off. So we'll put a good squodge of it on there. I haven't managed to burn myself yet, but there is still time. And just remember to give it a good blow on it as well. So what I've done is I've just folded that over. I'm just holding it in place. And what we're going to do is repeat the process. So I'm just going to hold that in place for a minute. There is a bit of waiting around, but I think the end result's going to be well worth it. So I'm just going to sit here and hold this and hopefully not end up with burning myself, because I seem to remember, I'm sure some of you will remember this as well, I was definitely allowed to use glue guns at school. But I specifically remember using glue guns at school. What I don't remember is how unbelievably hot they are. When I was doing the last, what was I doing? No, Harry had broken one of his toys. So I was sticking a wheel back on it again. And what I didn't realise was there was a hole on one side. But obviously there's also a corresponding hole on the other side of the wheel. I was holding it with my hand and basically just managed to pump the third of a glue stick's worth of glue through the wheel onto my own hand, and it was like having the tears of Mount Vesuvius poured directly onto the palm of my hand. It was absolutely excruciating. Now that side has glued now, which is good, and it has gone off. So what I'm going to do is, holding it down like this, I'm just going to pinch this side over and glue this side down as well. Might actually be easier to lay the thing down like this once it's glued, just to hold it in place. So this is going to be particularly interesting for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on and glue this, and when I'm finished, I'll turn it back on, and we'll have a quick chat about how to do it, and we'll also have a look at what we've achieved as well. Okay, so be patient, take your time with this. Remember to blow on the glue to speed its setting as you're working your way around it. But what you want to have achieved by the end of it, if I hold this up to the camera, hopefully you'll be able to see it. Basically, you want to have glued this material right the way over the face of the dish, all the way around, right the way around the seam, just leaving this little area at the top. That's where we're going to put the media in through here, okay? Now this glue, when it's gone off, it sticks like, it has unbelievable hold. You won't pull it off with your hands without breaking this plastic dish. So once that's happened, you can just cut the remainder of this material off, okay, both sides. So you've just got this little bit left on here. We just want to cut any of that. It was just that bead of glue we first put on here was basically to hold it in place whilst we did the rest of the gluing. So we can go ahead and cut that off now. That's just wastage. Remember to put it in the recycling because it's plastic and it can be melted down and used for something useful again. So all we really want to do is just cut this material off with our scissors. Be careful of our fingers. Miraculously, I haven't once managed to burn myself today, and that's pretty much, we've got one last little bit of glue gunning to do. If you were being super fussy, you might be able to get this off of here. I don't think I'll be able to get it off of here because it's just so glued on there. Yeah, it's really glued on there. I'd be scared of breaking the bottom of the saucer, really. So it's quite a slow and tricky build, but the beauty about these is this plastic, it's never going to rot away, it's never going to break down, and in theory, because we still have access to the media, even if the plant dies, so if the plant dies on the front of here, you could remove it and actually take the old media out and put new media in and reuse it. So it would actually potentially last for ages and ages. Just want to have a bit of a tidy up along here, just cut any of these scabs off because we're not using those. There's bits of plastic flying all over my kitchen. My wife's going to go mad. Going to have a bit of a sweep up before we disappear off up to bed because it's getting late now. It's nearly 11 o'clock and I'm still downstairs building things and making content for you guys. So if I go to bed now, I know I still get a good 7 hours sleep before I've got to get up in the morning. It's very early days here in the early mornings here in the household. Not because of the kids, just because I've always had to get up early. Right, so loads of these little black bits all over the place now, which is quite irritating. So yeah, that's that finished now. Whilst we've still got the glue gun hot, what I've got here is, this is a picture hanging clip. Okay, so it's just a little brass, I'll just drop it on the floor there. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all, if you look at it in profile, it's got a bit of a bump here, and we need to flatten that out because what if you notice, it's going to push against the material that we're mounting it on or hanging it on, which is going to be irritating. So we need to flatten that out, and that's where the mold grips come in handy. So what I'm going to do is just treat these up. I use these because they've got a good bit of purchase, so you can really give it some welly. And I'm literally just going to pinch the end of it there and just squash it like that. And then what we're going to end up with, hopefully, is a nice flat pre-made hook. So it's nice and flat now. I just flattened that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue this on the back of here. So just bear in mind where the top is, and we're going to glue that on there like that. So these glue guns are great, but what the only downside of the glue gun is it takes a bit of time for the glue to go off. So what I'm going to do is just put a big dollop of glue. Oh, it's going for my fingers. It's going for my fingers. Oh, that was close. I really would like to make it through one build using the hot glue gun without actually burning myself. And it'd be sod's law to get burnt right at the end. So once again, just need to give it a good blow. If I hold it up to the camera, you can see there, hopefully, if I can make it focus in. So just a big dollop of glue on there. Once this stuff goes off, it's not going anywhere. So just make sure that's sort of in the middle. Yeah, it is. Even the metal clip's hot. Not sure what temperature these glue guns are designed to work at. This one, I'm assuming it's approximately 1000 degrees centigrade. It certainly feels like that anyway. Lots of gratuitous blowing on this. What I'll do is I'll turn that off, turn you guys off. We'll leave that for 5 minutes to go off, then we'll come back to it and we'll have a bit of a chat about the media. Okay, so that glue's gone off now, so that's rock solid on there. That's not going to go anywhere. So this is what we've got to play with. I've got some media over here, like I discussed before. The main reason I'm going down this route is because I don't have the time. Let me zoom you guys out a little bit so we're not quite so zoomed in. I know we are zoomed out, tell a lie. Now the reason we're going down this route is because I need to basically preserve the amount of time I have to do other things in regard to the orchids. Now, I don't need to neglect the orchids, and it's certainly not something I would ever endeavour to do, but to have that safety buffer, to have a media that retains enough moisture that I haven't got to be in there, you know, every single day. Sometimes, you know, sometimes, especially when the weather's like this and it's raining heavily, I can get away with not watering for 2 days because it's so humid in there, nothing really dries out. So that's why. And this is what's going to allow me to do that. So we've got lots of the Peruvian sphagnum moss in here. I've got some fine grade orchid bark in here, and I've also got some grow stone in here as well. So it's going to be quite an airy mix, but it's mainly going to be super water retentive. So I'm just going to give it a spray. I don't like working with really damp media because it's just awful trying to put it in something like that. So just get it damp so it's not dusty, and that's going to be perfect. I'll just move you guys over here a little bit. Excuse me. Okay, and what I'm going to do now, I'm basically just going to fill this little pocket up using the media. It's actually quite useful because you can actually sit the thing down on a work surface like that and actually put it in quite easily by hand. The only trouble with using sphagnum moss in a mix like this is you get a degree of separation, so a lot of the orchid bark drops to the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to need something to poke that down with. I'm going to use the back of a pair of scissors. Just need to tamp it down. Also, just picking it up and tapping it is going to help it to fill any voids up inside there. So like I said, this is going to really help hold the moisture in. It's going to look good as well because, of course, Bulbophyllum like to be mounted. They look better mounted. I think they display their flowers better mounted. And, you know, they take up less room, which is great in a small greenhouse because I can fit more orchids in it. And that's simply why we go down this route. This summer, I'm going to be adapting the misting system. So we're going to be keeping the misters up, or the mist nozzles up in the ridge line of the roof because they're really good at keeping the ambient humidity of the whole greenhouse up. But I'm also going to be running a spur line in front of and above my orchid mounted wall. So what will happen is, as the humidity drops, the misting system is going to come on automatically, and what it's going to do is it's going to spray directly onto the orchid wall. So basically every hour to every 2 hours, depending on how hot the weather is, because obviously relative humidity will change depending on how hot it is. The hotter in there, the lower the relative humidity, or the harder, the more moisture you need to get in the air to bring that humidity level up. So what it'll do is it'll actually basically I'm going to have an automatic orchid mount watering system, which is going to be fantastic. It's also RO water as well, so it'll also help to wash any sort of salt build-up we're getting from the fertilizer in it as well. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to be buying some new Mist King nozzles. So I'm going to be taking the single nozzles, which I'm currently using up in the roof. I'm going to be replacing those with quads. So we're going to have 16 nozzles, no, 12 nozzles up in the roof line, which is going to make a big difference. So it's going to be delivering a lot more water, but in a shorter period of time. And I'm also going to get another reservoir, so I'll join my 2 reservoirs up, so we've got more volume of water to play with. When you're doing this, make sure you don't be afraid to push. When I say this glue works, it really works. You won't break it off of the plastic very easily. You know, even if you really try. So just basically keep filling it up and really push it down with I'm using scissors, but back of a screwdriver would be just as useful and probably a lot safer than a bladed cutting instrument. But it's just what I've got to hand, and it's going to be fantastic for this. So I really want to tamp it down. I want to form a nice dense pad. It's just started to rain again. It hasn't stopped raining in the last 2 days. And we're supposed to be getting some proper weather. Nothing like you guys in America. I'm not talking tornadoes, hurricanes, flying knives and all those sort of wonderful things you have out in America, but I think we're expecting possibly up to 70-mile-an-hour winds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot for here. Coming from an arboricultural background as well, when the wind picks up like that, most tree surgeons across the country, and I'm sure in America, start seeing dollar signs everywhere, because with wind comes instability, and with instability comes trees falling over, which means there's lots of emergency work to do, which is really, really good and can be very lucrative, and I've certainly done very well in years gone by as a result of emergency works. So what I've done is I've just tipped the last of that straight in the top of it. Now we've got this void at the top, okay, which you could leave open. I don't think it would be an issue if you did leave it open. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to put a handful of sphagnum moss in there just to keep it sealed. Well, it's immaterial really, it doesn't really matter if it's open. I don't think it would make any difference whatsoever. But I'm going to plug it up with sphagnum moss. I just want to get the rest of this really tamped down here as tight as I can. I'm just going to go and get a little bit more, because remember, Oliver's greenhouse, we are rubbish at guesstimating the amount of material or potting media we're going to use. So I'll go and get that, and I'll come back and we'll finish potting it up. Okay, so I've moved you over the other side because I think the light's going to be better. You're going to be able to see a lot. You're going to be able to see this a lot easier. So yeah, once again I've run out of a potting mix. This is all just excess stuff that I've had from other videos where I've either overestimated the amount I'm going to need or underestimated. Never quite know at Oliver's greenhouse, so sorry about the noise. Put some of that in there just for a minute. What I want to do is I want to fill this up to pretty much the top of the netting, up to this point here, and then the rest of it we're going to plug with just pure sphagnum moss. So make a mess all over the kitchen table. There we go. And it's really forms quite a dense pad of, well, I guess it's kind of simulating sort of a mossy tree trunk quite well, to be honest, because it's kind of what it feels like. It's quite dense to the touch now. It's become quite stiff because obviously we've packed it out with so much of the media. Just going to get this excess bit here and just put that back in there. And next to me I have my massive bale of sphagnum moss. I'm just going to grab a handful of the loose stuff that's kind of broken up on the top here. Tear a big lump out, excuse me. Pop that up there. I'm just going to squidge some of it together so that it fits in the top of here. A little bit just to pack in the sides. Nearly done. And there we have it. So that is the surface we're going to work with. All done. Just going to pop that up on there for now. I'll pop this back in here. Have a bit of a tidy up. And then we'll go ahead and mount the orchids on this surface of this new mount. Right, so that's going to wait to be reused. The next exciting thing to do will be to get the orchid out, and we'll have a look at what we're working with. So, Bulbophyllum laciochilum. It's got sort of unusual, sort of hard to describe. It looks a little bit like they're the same sort of shape as the flying things out of the original Tron film. That's quite an abstract analogy, or the easiest way I can describe them, apart from the bottom half's purple and the upper half is sort of creamy with sort of dark, sort of purpley spots. So we'll just take it out of here, we'll have a look at what we're working with. Hasn't really got much in the way of roots on it, it has got some. Huge lumps of, what is that? It feels like concrete. It looks like maritime pine. Pinus pinasta, big lumps of pine bark. Just want to get the worst of these bits off. The orchid roots have actually gone down inside between the xylem vessels in this piece of wood and really clinging on, so I don't want to break too many off. I want to be quite careful with them. Give it a shake, there we go, right. We'll leave those few on because they are on there, as in they are at one with the orchid. Now what we're going to do is just lay the orchid. So if it's going to be up this way, we need to orientate the orchid so that it hasn't got to change the location of its leaves. So what I'm going to suggest is mounting it like this. Because the sun, if it's hanging up like this, the sun's going to come down and hit it this way. So at worst, it's got to elevate its leaves slightly rather than trying to completely reorientate itself. And this is where the, what are these called again? Sailmaker's needles are going to come in handy. Let's get one of these out. I use these all the time, they're fantastic. Very easy to work with. Just need a thin length of this. Fishing line. Watch your teeth. I haven't got my glasses on either, so this could take... No, it wasn't too bad this time. Because we don't want to really see... I hate seeing fishing line. One of my pet peeves is orchids mounted on things using highly visible items such as green garden wire and stuff like that. It just drives me up the wall. I think it looks so atrocious. And then this end, you won't be able to see it, or I doubt you'll be able to see it even with the new filming gear. I'm just going to put a loop in here just to make it easier to have something to constrict on, like that. Right. Next thing to do is decide whether or not we're going to incorporate any sphagnum moss around the actual roots. I am. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tiny little bit, just a thin pad of moss around some of the roots we've freshly exposed, with the aim of taking it off at some point. My experience with these is it really doesn't take very long before the orchid roots shoot down into the media anyway. I'll leave it off for the minute, and what I'll do is take the orchid off like that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pass, not sure whether you'll be able to see this, we're going to pass the needle in and out of some of the webbing without stabbing it into our fingers. That's another one of my tricks. I like to sort of like partly sew myself to whatever it is I'm working on. And again in the middle, without stabbing myself, like this. One more time. Okay, so that's gone over the back. Pick that up, bring it over here so we can encourage it to go where we want it to. Right, okay. Now what we're going to do is put the orchid back where we had it. So we're going to orientate it, a bit of stray sphagnum moss out of there. Like this, comme ci, comme ça, like that. And in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little bit of moss just over the roots, which have become exposed as a result of us unpotting it. So we're just going to pack a bit of moss in around those. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it's just because they've been freshly exposed, we just want to make sure that we're giving them some hydration. If they're just exposed to pure atmosphere, even in my moist environments in the greenhouse, it has the potential to cause problems. Desiccating roots is never a good idea. Right, once we've done that, we should be able to lightly hold the orchid in place. Take our fishing line through the loop we tied at the beginning. I wish I had my glasses on. Can't see a blooming thing. Like that. I'm going to pull this side to bury the loop inside the media, like that. And take that one over that leaf there, because we want to make sure we're not constricting anything other than basically the rhizome, which the orchid is creeping along on. And we're going to just hold it tight like that. So I've done one stitch going across it lengthways, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another one top to bottom. Oh, it's sphagnum moss all over the place. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass, so you have to look at the side of my head for a minute, I'm afraid, people. Doing this without being on camera is fiddly enough. Doing it and trying to provide an angle of view for you guys and doing it is really tricky. Now, we haven't got to go insane, it hasn't got to be super stitched on here, but it's got to be on here enough to hold it firmly in place until it becomes established. The fishing line never really seems to harm the orchids, but the fact that it's on there always makes me want to remove it at some point anyway, because what it can do is it can push up against the stem of the orchid or the rhizome, and you can end up with problems with it constricting areas of the vascular tissue, which can lead to necrosis. So basically you end up killing off a piece of the orchid, which is not what you want really. So I'm going to pass it. I know you can't really see this, guys, but it's not hugely interesting, it is just a bit tricky. Okay, so we're nearly done. I'm going to take that line, I'm going to come up over here like this. Move that out of the way, nearly done. And I'm just going to do it a little, not somewhere I can get to easily at a later date, so that I can remove this. There we go, we'll put it through there. And we're just going to do a little series of half hitches around here. So what I'll do now is pass the needle back underneath the piece of line, put it round, put a loop back through itself, hopefully, like that. Snip that off, and it's so fine, we shouldn't really be able to see it anyway. And there we have it. Give it a quick spray just to take the edge off the dry old sphagnum. Also, what I'll do is I'll take it in the greenhouse now, hang it up on the wall, and well, actually no, I won't. What I'll do, I'll probably leave it. The beauty about this is going to be very easy to water, because there's no drainage holes in the bottom of it. So it'll be a case of just giving it a normal watering. Let it sit in some water first, so the water won't drain out of it. Let it sit in some water first. Let that media really soak up as much of the moisture as possible. And then when you turn it upright, put it back on the wall, any excess water will drain out of it. And although it should dry a lot slower than a lot of the other mounts, because of the surface area which is exposed, it's still going to dry up pretty quickly. I'm not concerned about rot or decay affecting any of the roots. And there we have it. Just get rid of any of these, tuck any of these loose little bits in like that. So there we have it. One mounted orchid. Okay, so I really hope you've enjoyed that video. I've enjoyed making this video. These aren't that easy to make. They are going to take you a bit of time. You are going to have to be patient with them, but I think the end result speaks for itself. I think that looks really, really good. It's going to help us retain moisture. It's going to keep the media nice and damp for Bulbophyllum. It's going to be great. They like to be mounted. They look better mounted. They're going to be easy up. Before any of you say it in the comments as well, I did remember to put the name tag on the back of this one. Warranted, I thought I'd finished making the video and had to quickly turn the glue gun back on again. But I didn't manage to burn myself, and I have remembered to put the date and the species of orchid on it. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember, if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, like down below, and please leave a comment. I really enjoy the interaction with you guys, I look forward to hearing from you. And don't be afraid to give these a go. Honestly, if you want some advice or any tips or pointers, just PM me, and I'll help you if I can. Thanks for watching.